Fans are outraged after the FIA's latest actions seem to reveal a potential bias against Max Verstappen. During the Mexican Grand Prix, Verstappen finally received a penalty for his aggressive defensive moves, sparking heated debates. This comes right after some questionable calls at the US Grand Prix, where Lando Norris was penalized in a close fight with Max. Is there a hidden agenda against Verstappen? The 2024 F1 season in the Americas has brought an intense battle between Lando Norris and Max Verstappen. Although Lando has been trying to close the gap, Max has held a strong lead in the championship, making him the favourite to clinch the title in just a few races. With Red Bull's performance slightly slowing down, Lando has found chances to challenge Max. For Max, keeping his points lead over Lando is crucial. If he can do that, the championship will be his. At the United States Grand Prix, a rough start for Norris put him behind Verstappen. This allowed Max to defend aggressively, keeping Lando from gaining points. Lando did manage to overtake, but was penalized for going off the track during the move. When Norris tried to pass Verstappen on the outside, both ended up in the runoff area. While many drivers, including Norris, felt Verstappen's move was unfair, the current rules allowed it. If a driver is ahead at the corner's apex, they have the right to the line. Following these incidents, drivers met with the FIA to discuss changing the rules on aggressive defending. The FIA agreed to consider revising these guidelines and plans to present the new rules for approval in Qatar in 2 races' time. However, at the Mexican Grand Prix, the rules remained the same, so Norris decided to take a similar approach when he and Verstappen met on track again. This time, Lando made sure he was ahead at the corner's apex, turning the tables in the ongoing battle. Max penalized in Mexico, a turning point. In the recent Mexican Grand Prix, Max Verstappen faced penalties for his aggressive driving tactics against Lando Norris. Though the penalties were deemed correct, some questioned the credibility of the steward's decisions. Johnny Herbert, a former F1 driver and steward in Mexico, shared controversial thoughts on the situation, suggesting that the penalties might not prevent Max from pushing Norris off the track in the future. Herbert believes Verstappen's actions aim to give Ferrari an advantage in the race, though he disagrees with this approach. According to Herbert, fair racing is what Lando wants, but Max's style isn't likely to change with the championship on the line. Following the race, McLaren boss Zak Brown voiced concerns, saying the 2 10-second penalties for Verstappen weren't enough. He felt the punishment didn't reflect the seriousness of the actions. Herbert, however, defended the steward's decision-making process, explaining that they followed established guidelines and the teams had agreed with the ruling. He stated that the 20-second penalty was fair, even if Verstappen's driving style was borderline reckless. Herbert described Verstappen's approach as on the edge, emphasizing that forcing another driver off track is unacceptable in F1. Herbert noted that Verstappen's horrible mindset in some races crosses the line, questioning why the champion feels the need to adopt such a fierce stance. His driving style, while effective in holding off competitors, has raised concerns among current and former drivers. Many agree that while Max's competitive spirit is admirable, his approach in situations like the Mexican Grand Prix crosses a boundary. Moreover, Herbert's unique position as both an FIA steward and an F1 pundit for Sky Sports has stirred up controversy. As a steward, Herbert is expected to make impartial decisions based on the rules. However, his role as a pundit involves sharing his opinions, including those about specific drivers. This dual role is unusual, especially in sports where referees are not expected to publicly express personal opinions. It's hard to think of another sport where an active official can openly discuss their dislike for a player. Critics argue that this dual role raises potential bias concerns, particularly when Herbert's opinions about Max Verstappen make headlines. Herbert's vocal stance against Verstappen isn't the only incident that raises eyebrows. Many fans and analysts suspect that other events in the Mexican Grand Prix may hint at a bias in the steward's room. Verstappen's 2 10-second penalties in the race were widely deemed fair by the FIA. However, when comparing his first penalty from Turn 4 to similar on-track incidents, questions arise about the consistency in steward decisions. One incident drawing comparisons is the clash between Lawson and Perez at Turn 4 on lap 18. Perez, attempting a pass on Lawson, faced a situation nearly identical to Verstappen's run-in with Norris. However, unlike Verstappen, Perez did not receive a penalty for his move. Such discrepancies lead fans to wonder if personal views, especially from stewards with public opinions, could be influencing decision-making, and the debate over Herberts' dual roles and whether stewards should be allowed to serve as public pundits highlights an ongoing issue in F1. Many argue that stewarding should be as transparent and impartial as possible, without the influence of public opinion or external affiliations. As F1 continues to grow and attract a global audience, maintaining consistency in rulings and minimizing any appearance of bias remains essential for the sport's credibility. The Lawson and Perez 2 penalties incident. The debate over inconsistent penalties resurfaced in the Mexican Grand Prix when Sergio Perez forced Liam Lawson wide at turn 4, causing contact. Interestingly, Perez faced no penalty, even though Lawson was ahead at the apex, an advantage even greater than what Lando Norris had when he was penalized in a similar incident with Max Verstappen. In Perez's case, stewards deemed it a racing incident, and no further action was taken. Yet, in Austria, Max received a 10-second penalty for contact with Norris under similar circumstances. Johnny Herbert, who served as a steward then, emphasized the importance of consistency in enforcing FIA regulations. This raises questions about why Perez's move, nearly identical to Verstappen's, went unpunished. On lap 13 of the Mexican Grand Prix, Perez executed another aggressive move, pushing Aston Martin's Lance Stroll off the track, this time without contact. Despite forcing Stroll wide, no penalty was issued. In a similar situation at the US Grand Prix, George Russell was penalized 5 seconds for forcing Valtteri Bottas off the track. These inconsistencies highlight a troubling pattern where drivers face different consequences for comparable incidents. Herbert has often cited intent in his commentary, suggesting that Verstappen's penalty was partly due to his intent to reduce Norris's scoring chances. However, under FIA rules, intent should not factor into the penalty decision, only the actions themselves should matter. In Verstappen's case, it seems his strategy to defend his championship lead influenced the steward's judgment. But should personal feelings about a driver's racing style impact the severity of a penalty? The discrepancies between these incidents have intensified calls for clearer, more consistent stewarding in Formula One. While the FIA aims to ensure fair racing, the inconsistent application of penalties suggests that some stewards might let personal views impact their decisions. This isn't the first time Johnny Herbert has openly criticized Max Verstappen. Before the 2021 season finale, Herbert remarked that Verstappen's aggressive moves, like forcing other drivers off the track, weren't exactly skillful, adding that anyone can do that. He compared Verstappen's style unfavorably to Lewis Hamilton's, whom he praised as a pure racer. In that same interview, Herbert speculated that Verstappen might even attempt a collision with Hamilton to secure the championship if both cars failed to finish, a claim he backed with his hope that Hamilton, not Verstappen, would win. This pattern of criticism has continued. Herbert also once publicly condemned Verstappen for swearing in media interviews, even though he was the steward responsible for assigning Verstappen community service for a similar issue. Herbert clearly holds strong views on Verstappen, yet his dual role as an FIA steward and media pundit raises questions about impartiality. As both a steward and a pundit, Herbert occupies a unique and contentious position in Formula One. Stewards are expected to be impartial decision-makers, adhering strictly to the rulebook during races. However, Herbert's pundit role requires him to express personal opinions, which can blur the line between unbiased officiating and outspoken commentary. When a steward spends the week after a race explaining a penalty decision that some consider excessive, fans and drivers alike may begin to question the decision-making process. For many fans, Herbert's outspoken criticism of Verstappen brings F1 stewarding into question. With Herbert set to officiate in Brazil, concerns are growing over the potential for bias or inconsistent decisions. If Herbert's past remarks on Verstappen influence his officiating, It could further fuel the debate on the need for stricter boundaries between stewards and media roles in F1. Herberts' dual role has sparked a larger conversation within the F1 community. Unlike other sports, where officials rarely share personal views on athletes, F1 allows stewards to become media personalities, potentially affecting perceptions of their impartiality. So should stewards be able to freely discuss their opinions, or does it threaten the credibility of their race day decisions? With Herbert back in action at the Brazilian Grand Prix, all eyes will be on his calls. Will his previous criticisms of Verstappen impact his decisions? Comment below your views and subscribe for more such videos.